but it's the way this town cares about its sports teams. It's not just a distraction. Sports for Memphis, it's a passion. And just look at it. I mean, you're talking about a city where, two bozos like John and I can go on and do a 3-hour radio show consistent mostly of sports takes and be blessed enough to be able to take care of our families. If there wasn't that kind of passion here in Memphis, we wouldn't be able to do what we do.
Hey, this is Shay.
And this is Carrie.
Welcome to the Pocket Change Podcast,
where you'll learn better ways to spend, save, and invest and take control of your financial journey.
Go Tigers, go.
Go Grizz, go.
We're all blue today.
I know, blue's my favorite color.
Supporting Memphis.
That's right.
All things Memphis
all
sports.
All things Memphis sports. That's right. We're going to have Jason and John from ESPN Radio on our show today, and we're excited to talk to them about everything to do with Memphis sports and their passion for Memphis and, their partnership with leaders. We're so excited today to welcome our guests, Jason and John from ESPN Radio 92.9 in Memphis today. Welcome to Pocket Change, Jason and John. How are you guys?
Oh, excited to be here. Too excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're so excited to have you with us today, of course. But for those of our followers and listeners who don't know you, we know you have a pretty loyal following in the Memphis area, but could you share a little bit about yourselves and how you both got into radio?
John, you want to go ahead? I usually like to let the youth go first.
Yeah, although that youth is fading by the day. Yeah, mine's a little less, I think, windy, right, than Jason's. Jason kind of took a different career path than I did. Mine was pretty straightforward. I graduated from Memphis on a Sunday, and I was working, or at least training, the next day. I had built a relationship with Jeff Calkins, who obviously you guys work with as well, and he was getting a radio show, and he wanted a talking producer, somebody who he knew he could count on to contribute. And after some pressure that was put on the management there from both Jeff and Gary, we got a deal done, and I started on that next Monday training with Jeff. And I was working at the Commercial Appeal as a stringer at the time, covering recruiting, so I kind of had two jobs that, even if you combined them both, would still be less than one job. But I was working, right? I was working, and I was doing it in the industry that I loved. And I did that job with producing Jeff for 3 years, and then as things do in the world, dominoes fell. The right dominoes fell, and got an opportunity to do the show with my guy Jason, who I've worked with at the CA for many years. So it all broke out perfectly. Yeah, I mean, I just got into it because it was media. I love to BS and talk and entertain, and it was just kind of a natural venue to do that.
For me, like John said, the route was a little bit more winding. I started in newspapers, as John said, working for the Commercial Appeal. At the time, the main local paper in Memphis. I'm a second generation journalist. My dad was in television journalism here in Memphis, and after going to college, started out at TSU up in Nashville and going for business because that's what Mom said. You want to major in business. That's where you're going to make money, son. But then figuring out in college, like many of us do, well, that's not really what I like. It's not really a passion for me. Deciding, okay, I'll try this journalism thing like my dad did, but I didn't want to go the television route. And early on, I decided to give newspapers a shot. And long story short, was lucky enough after graduating from Memphis like John, didn't get it the next day, but a little bit after my graduation, got a job at the Commercial Appeal, the newspaper here, covering high school sports. And so you had everything from football to, the high school basketball for all the, 80 to 90 schools that we had here in town. But you also had, stuff I'd never covered before, like high school bowling and volleyball. And so what you had to be was versatile. But after, 7 years doing that, I spent the last 6 at the newspaper as the University of Memphis basketball beat writer. And anybody who knows this city of Memphis or knows anything about it knows how much it cares for that Memphis basketball team. And so got a chance to get that spot at the newspaper. And then after 13 years there, to finally get to the end of this winding road, John and the radio station came and said, hey, we're starting up a new show. John Martin, your friend, is going to be one of the hosts. Would you like to come and join him? And at the time, obviously 13 years in newspapers, you're talking about a leap of faith, jumping out into radio, even talking something that I knew, which was sports. It was still something I didn't in terms of the medium itself, radio. And so it was a leap of faith. It was 8 years ago this month, and happy to say now, more comfortable than I ever thought I'd be, but certainly too more blessed than I ever thought I'd be because I'm getting to do it with a guy I refer to as my brother more so than my co-host. And we're getting to talk sports for 3 hours a day in the city of Memphis, Tennessee. That's already sports crazy. And so 21 years in the sort of sports media game in Memphis. And yes, the last 8, very blessed to be at 92.9 FM ESPN with John.
Yeah, and y'all can tell y'all are a brotherhood more than just, co-hosts, and y'all have that collaboration together. So going along with that, what do you love most about covering Memphis sports? And Jason, we'll start with you.
It's the passion. I mean, you find that out so fast here once you've moved here. And we were transplants. My dad, climbing up the television game, moved us here from Florida in the mid '80s. He came to work for the NBC affiliate here in Memphis, Channel 5, and so we didn't know what it was like when we first got here. And what you found out very early on in the '80s, especially as we got to the mid '80s, Memphis basketball at the time as Memphis State basketball was huge. Remember, at that time, you were talking about a city that didn't have an NBA team, that didn't have the Memphis Grizzlies. And so, and as I've said to John, that Memphis State basketball team and that program was the city's professional team. And what you found out very early on, especially as they were making, Final Four runs in the mid '80s, was that this town loved its basketball. And frankly, its blood almost seemed to pump Tigers basketball. And so you learn that very early on. You find out how much people care about their programs, about their sports. It didn't change once the Grizzlies got here, obviously, and now it's been, almost a quarter of a century since they've been here from Vancouver, but it's the way this town cares about its sports teams. It's not just a distraction. Sports for Memphis, it's a passion. And just look at it. I mean, you're talking about a city where, two bozos like John and I can go on and do a 3-hour radio show consistent mostly of sports takes and be blessed enough to be able to take care of our families. If there wasn't that kind of passion here in Memphis, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And so for it's essentially that. I think first and foremost, it's the passion of the people here.
Yeah, I think Jason put it well. I had a job at the Commercial Appeal way back when, covering nothing but recruiting of the university, right? Like, just and it was mostly just basketball. I mean, I sprinkled a little football in there, but this place would go crazy. And times have changed a little bit, with NIL and the transfer portal. Now it's mostly, high school kind of it gets pushed to the background and the back burner. But I mean, there was a time 11, 12, 13 years ago where, Memphis fans would go absolutely, they would be just rabid about it. They'd be rabid about who is Memphis offering, who is Memphis going to see today, who is Memphis bringing on campus. I mean, it was a whole sort of game within a game. And again, that's changed over the years because of the landscape in college. But, I think that just sort of, embodies how much people care and are invested in sports around here. So it's that level of emotional investment in Memphis sports and sports in general. I mean, I think if you just poll, if it's college football, if it's college basketball, if it's NFL, I mean, even if we don't have a team necessarily, we still are watching and participating in whatever it may be. So I think that's the great thing about Memphis is just, yes, we love our teams, but we love sports, and that's been bared out, over many, many years.
Well, that's great. So we now know what you guys love about Memphis sports, but what do you love about the city of Memphis?
Well, I mean, it's obviously, now without its issues. What I think I love the most is that we, are, I think, aware of them, and we're trying to work through them. It's not a great, I mean, I can't, deny it and give you guys a fake answer. It's not a great time right now for Memphis. It feels like we've been through quite a bit. We've been through quite a lot. The last, I don't know, it feels like 5-6 years. And what I'm hopeful for, and what I truly believe, is that there are business owners, there are restaurateurs, there are people that are finally going to, I think, realize that, hey, enough with feeling sorry for ourselves, enough with the, negative stuff. I think you're going to see a doubling down on Memphis in the coming years. I think we have the right leadership. Everybody involved knows what's at stake. And I think there's something there. I mean, again, we have our challenges, and you can't really run from those. But I think that's what makes Memphis great, is that, we don't run from those. And now the work is fixing them. Now the work is fixing our problems and going to work every single day to make sure that we do that. But we go at things head on, and we don't try to hide who we are in Memphis. And I think that's definitely one of my favorite things about it.
I'd agree with everything John just said, and it's kind of Memphis grows on you. That's one of the things. It's you come here and you get it more if it's us telling you about Memphis and you've never been here. Say you're from the rest of the state, until you set foot here, until you drop boots down on Beale Street, I don't think you get it. And I know that's cliche, but it's so true about Memphis. We've said it. If you hug Memphis, it'll hug you back in a way that feels like family. When you talk about what I love most, it's the people. It's the fact that we're not going to wallow in self pity. The fact that Nashville has passed us in terms of what it's got going on. Maybe one day they'll have Super Bowls and everything else. But it's not saying, oh, woe is me. It's not that attitude here. John and I talk about it all the time. It's the roll up your sleeves mentality, and you're going to do it with the guy sitting next to you, the guy or gal sitting next to you, because you're all in it for one cause, which is moving this city forward. And so I think it's that. It's people that have a true soul. We talk about all that all the time, and not to shoot out shots at the rest of the state, but we talk about how our soul here in Memphis is different, and sort of what we come from and what we've been through is different than the rest of the state. And I think we take a great pride in that. And so it's the people that make this city so great. It's the people that make you want to come back here, because as John said, we've got our issues, we've got problems, but what we've got is a wonderful city in terms of the people that live here. It's a roll up your sleeves, we'll do the work. We're not just going to tell you how good a city we are. And when we get that acknowledgement from those outsiders, when they start to see it too, I think that's what makes us the most proud. So it's that answer's easy. It's the people of Memphis.
So leaders, we've been in the Memphis area with a one branch in the Bartlett area for about 10 years, and we're rapidly growing and want to continue to invest. And so we've become the studio sponsor for ESPN Radio. And so tell us what that sponsorship has meant to y'all.
What's been everything so far. I mean, first off, you all and leaders in their sponsorship, the studio sponsorship, it represents a great trust, right? A great trust in John and me to get the word out. Because when you have something good, right, you want a good word put out about it. And so that's first and foremost. We're grateful because of the trust that leaders has put in us. The second thing that I would point to, and I think John would agree, it's something we're proud of. We talk all the time. We're a sports radio show, but John and I like to think that we're here to serve this city, to serve the city of Memphis, whether that's with our viewpoints, things we hope we can make better in this city, whatever it is. And clearly that's what Leaders is here to do. So it lines up. Yeah. Yet Leaders' vision to serve is our vision as a show. John and I have looked at ourselves, and hopefully it's come across that way for 8 years now, as sort of servants of the people of Memphis, much like we were in our journalism roles, coming up to the U of M, me at the newspaper, you are the watchdogs, you are the servants for the people here. And in so many ways, Leaders is that. Leaders is working for the people, unlike banks. And that's why it's been so much fun for us, but also a responsibility we're not taking lightly, and putting that word out. When you've got something as good as Leaders that's working for you, right? You want to be careful with it. You want to protect it. And so we're grateful for the trust of Leaders, but also they make it easy for us when you're shouting out a great product like Leaders. They make it easy for us. They really do.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think, for us in our spot, 8 years into this successful, we want to align ourselves with businesses and sponsors that we feel aligned with, and I think what you guys do and your focus, right? And you guys are unapologetic about it, is you want to help, you want to educate, you're focused on the future and the difference, right? And the difference with Leaders as opposed to, everybody else, where, the focus may be, you might just be a number, you might just be an account. At Leaders, you're a person and you're a member of the community, and I think it's important for us, right? We don't want to just say, oh, everybody, we'll just advertise with anybody. We'll just spread the word about anybody's business. It's important for us to believe, not just in the business, but the people that are involved with it as well. And so I think that's why it's a partnership as much as it is a sponsorship. And I think that's what, that's what we're trying to focus on with our show in 2024.
Mm-hmm. We appreciate you getting the word out, and I think we call ourselves financial champions, but maybe taking Jason's word, we'll call ourselves financial watchdogs for our members and for Memphis. So, maybe a new, looking out for everybody. So.
Well, and I find it comforting to know that we all share the same passion of serving the people.
Yeah.
So it's a great partnership that we have with you guys, and we're thankful for that. Mm-hmm. But shifting gears, we are a financial podcast, so I can't, slip away without asking you guys, what's the best financial advice that you've been given?
Over the years, you hear a lot, right? But the most impactful, I would say, just in my overall life, would be understand your 401k if you have one at your company. Understand what the match is, and definitely max it out if you can. I mean, I know that's not necessarily a day-to-day piece of advice, but it's a day-to-day 30 years from now piece of advice. And yeah, it's important to have money today so that you can pay your bills and do things and all that. But you got to have money for yourself in the future. And I think the power of compounding interest is something that I just didn't really understand. Never knew what a 401k was, and I was told basically you're not even going to miss the money. You won't even know it's gone. Obviously, the tax incentives are huge as well. So just understanding the power of the 401k. I know there will be critics, there will be detractors of it, but I'm just more of the old school traditional guy when it comes to maxing that out and making sure that I can preserve a future for myself and my family. So I don't have to work until I'm 80 years old, right? Like I don't have to do that. It's sad what Ron Olson is having to do. I mean, he should be wheeled out of the building, but I guess he just didn't have that 401k. So my whole thing was make sure that I have that and max it out and do as much as I can. And a Roth IRA would be the same thing, though that's a little different. But yes, I would say 401k for sure. Start investing in that. Not today, yesterday.
I could not agree more with John. I mean, I spent 13 years at the CA, like we talked about, the newspaper here in Memphis, coming out of college back in 2002. And I did not contribute to a 401k for those first 13 years. And I wish I had been as smart as John was financially, as young as early in my career as he started, because I look at what the situation could have been for me. And it wasn't until joining him at the radio station and 1 year in, so 2017, with the match that our company was offering, that I said, you know what, I got to get in this. And I think that, John was one of those that schooled me on it and said, look, I mean, to be honest with you, you've blown it here. But like he said, let's go ahead. It's never too late, to get you in this. And to be honest with you, I really, whether it's, vocally and saying it to him or just in my head every day, I'm grateful to my partner that I did, because just in that 7 years time, it's made this huge difference. So absolutely on the 401k. And I'd also say, listen, my dad, times have changed. My dad raised me up with the advice, hey man, if you can't buy it cash, don't do it. You can't. Obviously you can't live like that anymore. So some of the old rules, right, that I was brought up with, they don't apply anymore. But what I will say is no matter how much money, you either start with or you've got, or sort of what road you're on, being a good shepherd, right, of what you have, right, rather than hey, I'd love to have that. John and I were just talking about this on the show today. A lot of times it's a better attitude. You can save a lot easier if you love what you have, as opposed to having everything that you love. Loving what you have, being a good shepherd of what you have, can still, again, paying those bills on time, lead to good credit. And that, again, is so much bigger, so much larger for you in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, absolutely get on that 401k, like John finally got me to come around and understand. But also, you don't have to start with a lot to get to a place that's better. You can start with a little bit, and that takes a little bit of discipline, clearly, financial discipline, but a little bit can get you a long way. So just to piggyback off what John said, that's my little 2 cents of financial advice.
That's a lot more than 2 cents. We got a whole book of advice right there. But
I don't know about that.
It's good
I
to have
to this man. He's my financial advisor.
Well, it's good to have a trusted partner that someone you can trust, talk to, and that
Absolutely.
will encourage you into, positive money habits. So that's a great piece of advice. And the last question, since, we call it the Pocket Change Podcast. If you had some pocket change, just some spare change in your pocket, what's something you would spend it on?
So this one's easy for me. A few weeks back, we were lucky enough to roll into the Bartlett branch leaders here in Memphis and open up a future leader savings account for my son. He's 10 years old. His name is Christopher. We'd read all about it. Obviously, John and I have talked about it on the radio. Haven't been given this chance for with Leaders as our studio sponsor, but we talked about the fact that he gets quarterly bonuses for straight A's, a bonus for perfect attendance, but 5% APY. It's a way for us to show Chris and teach him how to grow his money very early on at 10 years old. And so that branch that had been here 10 years, one branch. Now we got the new one coming up in Arlington. I know that we've broken ground on, but that branch, I had never been there. And so that's another great thing I love about being partnered with Leaders is that we're getting this word out about the new branches coming on and everything else. But we were lucky enough to open up that Future Leaders savings account for Christopher. And we're teaching him, very early on how you can grow your money. And so if I've got a little bit of extra change, we're throwing in that Future Leaders savings account, teaching Chris a little bit something about growing his money.
Earn that interest.
That's great.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet with my 3.5-year-old. Soon enough, when we start getting into grades and stuff. But for the moment, if I did find some, it would go in the piggy bank. What's funny though is that every time I ask my daughter, if I ask her, "Hey, can I have $5?" She always gives me the same answer every time, and that answer is, "I don't have any pockets." I didn't ask you if you had pockets. I asked you if you had $5, but she never has any pockets. So she can never loan me $5. So we'll see if that ever changes. But in the meantime, this is a one-way transaction, and that's going into my daughter's piggy bank for sure.
That's great. Well, we thank you guys so much for being on the podcast today and sharing all this great news about Memphis and what you're doing with Memphis sports.
We thank you guys for your trust in us and your partner.
It was an honor and a privilege. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Pocket Change Podcast.
Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, and check out our full episodes on YouTube.
The Pocket Change Podcast was brought to you by Leaders Credit Union,
where we power your passion and make lives better.
Cha-ching!
Leaders is federally insured by the NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
Learn more at leaderscu.com.